am Douglas E. Welch, and this is another episode of In the Garden for A Gardener's Notebook. For more information, you can always visit the website douglasewelch.com. Now, as I promised last week, we're going to get this area planted in shade plants. I'm going to detail you what the plants are. Yes, they did come from a little kit like I showed last week. Basically, what's really nice is for the inexperienced gardener, which I somewhat consider myself sometimes. They have very carefully labeled the type of plant it is, how deep to plant it, how far apart to plant it, and what color it is, when it blooms, and such and so on. So the biggest thing with this is we want to make sure the heights are correct. So we have two plants that get about 20 inches high, and we have one plant that gets about 18 inches high. So obviously we're going to plant the short one towards the front, the taller ones towards the back. In this case, this area is kind of reclaimed from our little woodland garden. It basically just ends up covered up in leaf litter and everything else. And so we've pulled all that off. I fit up all the ground. At some point in its life, it was covered in river rock. And so everywhere you look in this bed are these river rocks everywhere. We've pulled out probably 3 buckets of them over the years and kind of keep tossing them up on the hill up here out of the way. But there still is a lot of good soil in here. Also, you can sort of figure out from the history of a garden bed too. I see at some point either we or the previous owners put redwood bark on this particular patch as well, because a lot of that turned up. Of course, it does break down and biodegrades back into the soil. So basically from here on out, I'm just going to show you what I'm doing. We're basically going to plant 3 rows based on the height, kind of concentric circles out from the center, and fill in this entire bed. There are 6 of each plant. First we're going to plant, this is a Wachera Purple Pallas, and it's a little interesting. You get something like this and it's like, well, where's there a plant in there? But you see it's kind of just a mass of roots. The nice thing is they tell us how deep to plant these, which is only about 2 inches. So basically just barely covering these is going to be enough. They don't need to go really deep. They look like they have more spreading roots than anything else. Okay, so we put the Wachera in along the back row of this bed. This is the Columbine William Guinness. Grows to a height of, again, about 20 inches, and it says plant 2 inches deep, about 6 inches apart. So these are supposed to be closer together, so we're probably going to bring them in this area here. We're basically trying to present the growth, the prettiness to my office window, which is in that direction right behind the camera over there. So we'll lay these out, we'll put these in, and then we'll move on to the astilbe, which will be in the front. Okay, and finally, this is the astilbe. This grows to 18 inches, it says, and it says to plant it 1 inch deep, 15 inches apart. So 1 inch is really, if you think about it, these will probably be actually kind of sticking out of the soil a little bit. Now, the others two look kind of dead little masses of roots. Yeah, it's hard to believe anything's going to grow from them at all, but I expect it to. This one, on the astilbe, you're actually seeing little shoots already coming up. And so basically what they're telling us to do is plant that pretty much where those sprouts are starting to come out of the ground. None of this stuff has gone very deep. Thank goodness this bed isn't a really deep bed. So we'll basically put them in just like that, fill them up to the soil right by the tips of the new growth there, and hopefully we'll have some astilbe pretty soon. Now, as I mentioned in the past, I am all for using any opportunity to green up the garden that I can. And so a friend of mine dropped by some of these Gerbera Daisies. I just happen to have an area that's part full sun, part shade area here where they might actually thrive. Right in front of these agapanthus here, there is actually an opening. There might be some bulbs in here. If I turn them up, I'll simply replant them because they are at the end of their season as well. So we'll go ahead and we'll plant these Gerberas up and see if they turn into anything. Again, just an opportunity to green up this part of the garden as much as we can and see what takes.
Thanks for joining me for this episode of In the Garden from A Gardener's Notebook. For more information, you can always visit the website, douglasewelch.com. There you'll find links on everything I do, including A Gardener's Notebook. I'd love to hear what's happening in your garden. Send along your questions or comments via YouTube comments, on the blog, via Twitter, Google+, Facebook, and more, whichever you feel most comfortable using. If you're watching this on YouTube, please click that like button. It really does help. It helps people discover our videos and spread the word about A Gardener's Notebook. Thank you again. Until next time, keep digging.